Michael Bisping did a piece, and Michael Bisping talking about heavyweight. And he was talking about what we all believe to be true, which is Jon Jones versus Stipe next up. That's our next step to the undisputed championship, which Francis currently has. Is Francis going to defend it? Is Francis going to drop it behind? But we all believe that's our next step. And I have really accepted that and eaten that bowl blindly. I've never questioned it once. I've never heard it questioned. Michael questioned it. Guess what he said? He said it's the wrong move. He said if the match that you want, the biggest match in our industry is Jones versus Ngannou, just wait and just make it. What do you think of that? That had never crossed my mind. And you know what? If we're being real literal, you make the match that you can make when you can make it. You make Jones and Stipe, if they're both relatively heavy, you deal with Francis down the line. I understand that, but hold the thought, because I like where the count is going with this, and I see it. And it's a very different scenario when we're talking about trying to crunch Jones and Stipe in at some point this year. I mean, let me just give you a timeline. None of us know if this is true, but we got to work on the information that we currently have. Francis said 3 days ago, I'll be back in December. So if we're looking at December as the return, which has also been the date that we've always had speculated by every doctor, every trainer, and I believe Hunter Campbell himself referenced the contract of Francis. I've always heard December for Francis, right? It sounds right to me. February means December. November means, right, we're right in that area. Okay. But if you're going to go and try to smash Jones and Stipe in prior to that, because that's our precursor, based on the notion that we might get Francis back, I agree with Bisping. To a very large extent, I agree with Bisping. You were 5 months ago? I don't agree with Bisping at all. Guys, we're 2 months ago. Let's get this done. I thought Jones and Stipe were going to fight. Guys, we don't even have a contract. Not to mention, do we not have a contract? We don't have a viable date. I mean, if you go get a calendar out, this is off the top of my head. We got an international fight this week, couple championships headlined by Adesanya. We're going to fast forward. We're going to get Leon and Kamaru done, but they're headlining the bill. So that takes another month right off the board. That's in August 3rd, something along these. Boom. What month are you in? You're in September or something along these lines? You're in October? You're talking about Francis is going to be back in. It's interesting. It's very interesting what Bisping said. And then what would you do? I wish Bisping would have gone from there. How would have he done this completely? Here's what I think he would have done. I think he would have said, and he was very complimentary. His whole reason is Stipe can beat him. His whole reason, Stipe's already beaten Francis. Stipe can beat Jon. I don't know if he will, but he can, and he'll throw off the whole damn plan. So I think where Bisping ultimately would have gone with this is he would have gone Jones versus Francis next. Then you bring Stipe in. So now all of a sudden, the true trilogy of the heavyweight division, which is Stipe versus Francis because they've split the first two, that gotta do that. And then, of course, Jon versus Stipe, Jon versus Francis. This works all day long. So I'm assuming that's where the count would have gone with it. It's not the worst idea I've ever heard. I mean, in all fairness, you've got to consider everything. I don't know that any of us have even considered that. And as the days and weeks and months tack by, and as the pay-per-views for the year already get assignments, right, they're not going to bring that in out of left field. Going to Salt Lake City, bump Kamaru Usman to a co-main event. Excuse me. No, they're not. You don't have a whole lot of dates. All of a sudden, you got 2 more dates you can use him. September, October, November. You got 3 dates that you can use him. And those might be full. I haven't looked at those. Do you guys know off the top of your head? Do you know what main events and what matches are getting put together? I know Jules versus Amanda is coming up somewhere in there. It's very interesting what Michael is saying, because if we are going to kick the can, and we're already damn near there, but if we're going to kick the can on Stipe Jones to 2023, and I don't care if it's past January 1st, right? We're agreeing that late November, mid-December, we're agreeing that that's close enough for what we're talking about. If we're going to kick the can to that far, Michael's right. Move Stipe who works with Jones. Obviously, it's why we're discussing it. He works with Francis because it's a trilogy fight. Keep Stipe out. He's the player that can come in anywhere. He's the player that can come in at both. And all of a sudden you get 3 fights instead of possibly risking 1. I don't predict for you this is going to happen. I don't predict for you that Michael fully meant it, but I think that Michael was very wise to bring this conversation. If we're discussing things and we're bouncing ideas, that's interesting. Don't sign Jones and Stipe. Get Jones in the fight that he was meant to go to heavyweight to do. The entire Jon Jones experiment was predicated on him going in there and getting in there with Francis. I like that Bisping has at least brought this idea for discussion forward.